Do not settle for a life that does not belong to you. Uncover and activate your fullest potential in this lifetime. Live your greatest life experience.
This is the Full Potential Living Podcast with Coach Eric Ferguson.
Hello and welcome to the Full Potential Living Podcast, where our mission is to wake up the human race one individual at a time to self-actualize and live your fullest potential in life. Today, we're going deep into the future of human health, purpose, and performance with a man who's not just leading the charge in longevity, he's literally rewriting the code of human biology. My guest today is Dr. Ryan Rosner, the Director of Research at MiniCircle, one of the most disruptive gene therapy companies on the planet. But before he started changing the future of health, he was drilling 50-yard field goals, winning football games with seconds left on the clock. A former standout kicker at Stephen F. Austin State University, Ryan hit a game-winning 52-yard bomb in 2004. And followed it up with a 54-yarder, another clutch moment. Not to mention having a little bit of experience in the NFL. This is a man who performed under pressure his whole life, first on the field and now in the lab. For the past 15 years, Ryan has had relentless drive to help the world better understand DNA, to bring gene therapy from elite scientist research into the hands of the people, and to build practical solutions for living longer, stronger, and sharper. He earned his PhD in molecular medicine from the University of Washington. He even led a postdoc research project with the U.S. Air Force studying human hibernation. Yes, literally human hibernation. Wild. Now at MiniCircle, Ryan is leading the development of non-viral plasmid-based gene therapies like Follistatin, Klotho, and others that show serious promise for muscle growth, inflammation reduction, anti-aging, and even epigenetic age reversal. He's not just studying longevity, he's helping create the future of it. Dr. Rosner is known for combining rigorous science with real-world application. He's a bridge between the cutting-edge world of gene editing and the everyday person who just wants to feel better, live longer, and optimize their life and biohack on a budget. So buckle up, because today we're diving into the science, the story, and the soul behind one of the most exciting health movements in the world. Welcome, Dr. Ryan Rosner. How you doing today, man?
Doing good, Eric. Thank you for that. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was awesome to look into your background and listen to a couple other podcasts and start to study this, because for me, like on this podcast, we've done a little bit of health stuff, but this year is really going to be a focus. And especially living in Austin, like the whole idea of longevity has excited me so much, and helping others live healthier, especially at this time. Definitely feel like it's a perfect time to have you on.
Super exciting. Yeah. Love your mission. Feel very aligned with it. Super excited. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Awesome. What's new and exciting in your life today?
Oh, so many things. Yeah, I think I'm super lucky to have a job that's just endlessly exciting. So we've been going really deep on plasmid design, developing new targets, new genes to deliver. That's probably the most fun thing for me. So that's been a lot of excitement recently.
Yeah. Awesome. So I want to start with people kind of get a feel for your background. I think it's cool that you have the background of being a kicker, being an athlete, and then probably taking a lot of that into what you do now, having that mindset. Yeah. I actually want to start there. Really, like what mindset things do you take from being an athlete and performing under pressure, with those 52-yard, 54-yard kicks to even if it was 15 years ago. What do you take from that into your current life now, into longevity?
Yeah, it translates a lot, actually. The importance of team is very high. Performance under pressure, I think, performance under pressure is really created in the days, weeks, and months before the performance. So you have to prepare, you have to keep yourself in shape, all that stuff. That translates a lot. Another thing is finishing. So like grit. The NFL was very hard. At that age, I was candidly not mentally strong enough to finish the job.
Yep.
And that taught me a big lesson. Like when you have extraordinary opportunities, see them through. You'll regret it if you don't. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I can relate. I think, for me in college, I remember the first time I had 4 scouts come out to the game. I had the Blue Jays, the Mariners, the Marlins, and the Cubs, and they all watched me before the game. And my coach was like, oh, hey, by the way, all these 4 teams are here to watch you today. And I'm like 19, 20, and I'm like, oh, all right, cool. And I went out to batting practice, and I literally, like, I couldn't even hit the ball. I was so nervous, and I couldn't take, it's like the same thing. I couldn't take it mentally at that time because it was like everything to me. It was like the whole world. I can look back at that time and be like, I could not handle the mental pressure.
Yeah. It's a skill. Performance under pressure is a skill set independent of your other skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Very important skill. Very useful.
Yeah. Well, for listeners out there, we're talking about gene therapy today, but I want to make this like, I want to talk about, a lot of incredible information, but I also want to make it like practical for people out there.
Super excited about that. Yeah.
And I know that's part of your like mission too.
Absolutely. Very passionate about making science not just exciting, but digestible for non-scientists and actionable.
Yeah. Actionable. And I know we kind of talked about purpose a little bit. So 15 years of research, getting a PhD, hardcore dedication and studying and learning and achieving that. What do you feel like is the mission behind it for you? What's the purpose behind it for you?
Yeah, I'm really lucky. My purpose is super clear. It keeps me happy and it keeps me driven. So for me, it started when I was 4. I was super close to my mom. She got lymphoma. I remember when she learned she had it, I made trips to MD Anderson Cancer Center with her. I was never able to shake that experience. So that was the
lymphoma is, I'm assuming the lymph nodes are, what is lymphoma?
She found swollen lymph nodes in her arm. We were like doing yard work and she found some lumps and then we learned it was, cancer. And so I just, I was like, why does this happen? Why do people suffer like this? I studied philosophy to try and understand that. Philosophy didn't answer that, but I eventually found out that science could kind of answer that, but could also just change it. And so I was like, that was it. I was hooked on science. And I was just like, the potential of this is inexhaustible. And it's a creative undertaking. Like I can help people who are suffering from disease. I can, help make humanity more awesome in any way. Yeah. And so that's the mission, is like minimize the bad stuff, amplify the good stuff, just help humanity elevate and transcend. Yeah. It's inexhaustible. It's super fun.
Yeah. How old were you when that happened with your mother?
I was 4.
You're 4 years old.
Yeah, it was like one of my first memories, just right. So right from the start, that really shaped my worldview.
Wow. So if you had to say, like, what is your purpose exactly?
My purpose is just elevate humanity through biological research.
That's awesome, man. Making the world a better place. So how about MiniCircle? For those out there that are just hearing for this for the first time, it's really kind of a game-changing company, operated in stealth for 5 years.
About that, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And now a lot of the stuff is coming out. But I don't know what you can share, what you can't, but what's the mission of MiniCircle?
Yeah, I can definitely share. I mean, we have a great commitment. The 2 founders have created a great culture. Our mission is to make gene therapy simpler, safer, and more accessible. And it's a great mission.
Yeah. Very simple, safer, awesome. Let's talk a little bit about gene therapy and your expertise and some of the breakthroughs that have really, and I think people out there listening, like I said, I want to make it really like understandable and digestible for people. And so maybe we can just start with overall, like, what is gene therapy? Kind of just, what is it?
Is it okay if I start with what is a gene?
Yeah, sure.
So, most people have heard of DNA, but talking to non-scientists, most people don't have a good grasp of it.
Yeah.
So your body has 10 trillion cells and they each have a complete copy of your DNA. Your DNA is 3 billion digits of code.
Yeah.
And what it encodes is proteins. So your cells are like a membrane made of fat. They're filled with salt water. Carbohydrates are just fuel. Anything that does any work in your cells, like little machines, is a protein. And each one of those protein machines is encoded by a gene in your DNA. You have about 20,000 genes for about 20,000 proteins. So gene therapy can take a lot of forms. You can edit your DNA. You can add stuff, subtract stuff. It's basically tinkering with your DNA code. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially with gene therapy, what's happening is you are going in and sort of rewriting the instruction of the gene.
That would be a more advanced
change the behavior.
That's a more advanced form of gene therapy than we do. We basically we add like an extra page to the book or like a sticky note even. So we're not editing the document. We're just like adding a small note to it.
Okay.
We're putting in extra copies of a gene you already have.
Okay.
And we're basically giving you a really tiny extra chromosome. We're not like cutting open your chromosomes and editing stuff. We're just giving you more copies of something you already have.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Because essentially what's happening it's blocking, myostatin and activin, which are muscle limiting proteins in the cell.
Yeah. So the gene we're adding is follistatin, and follistatin is secreted into your blood, and it inactivates myostatin and activin in your blood. Myostatin and activin both limit muscle growth. And activin also causes a lot of inflammation. So if you turn up follistatin and turn down myostatin and activin, you increase muscle growth and decrease inflammation.
Because you've taken it yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So
I volunteered for a clinical trial before I worked for MiniCircle. Yeah.
So what kind of changes have you seen in the process of taking that?
Yeah, I think the way I describe my experience is it's been a lot easier to keep muscle on and fat off. Yeah, I mean, I would say I respond to weight training better than I did before the therapy.
So you see like less resistance training.
Pays off more. Yeah.
And it pays off more.
It's a pretty strong effect. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Is there any particular like metrics or numbers you can put out there?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of my favorite metrics that is really underappreciated is FFMI, fat-free mass index. We have a bunch of data on bodybuilders before and after the invention of steroids. And my impression is that before steroids, fat-free mass index there's basically kind of a max at 25.
And what is fat-free mass index for everybody out there?
Yeah. So it's, fat-free mass is all of your body mass except fat. So it's muscle, it's bone, it's organs, everything.
Fat-free.
I think lean mass would be everything except fat and bone. So fat-free mass is it is what it is. It's fat-free mass. So there's just some formula. I don't know the formula. There's free calculators online. You plug in your fat-free mass, which you can get via Alexa, and you plug in your height, and it gives you a FFMI, fat-free mass index. So I'm 42, and my fat-free mass index is just basically in cruise control at about 25, which is, I feel like, about the max, amount of muscle mass we're naturally carry. And I do consistent weight training, but not a lot and not that heavy. So the fact that I'm staying at 25 is like relatively easily I feel like that's good.
And what do you mean by 25? 25
FFMI. Yeah, so if I plug in my weight, body fat, and height on an FFMI calculator, I'm like right at that max that was seen pre-steroids in the bodybuilding world.
I see.
Yep.
Wow. So what excites you about that metric?
Here's what excites me. So longevity is multifaceted, and like I'm a longevity guy. You can optimize for anything you want.
Yeah.
I would argue that most people would benefit most by optimizing for longevity. I see longevity is multifaceted, and I think a lot of people, maybe their strength is like maxed out, and they keep reinvesting in strength instead of putting that in cruise control. So one, it can tell you like if you're at 25, like that's a good foundation. Like if you ever need to get stronger, you can, but like maybe focus on immunoinflammatory health or, cardiovascular arterial health. Yeah. The other thing is people who are less experienced with resistance training, they want to know like, where am I on how much stronger do I need to get? And I often tell them like, get your FFMI, and think of 25 as like a good goal. You don't have to get all the way up there, but like if you're between 15 and 20, like you're probably an argument can be made that you're under muscled for optimal longevity. I like it because it's just one simple number.
Keeps it very simple.
Keeps it simple.
So in terms of the procedure that for gene therapy, what does that look like? What,
this is only available. Our gene therapy is only available via medical tourism. So you fly as little as, let's say, 3 hours from Houston down to Roatan, an island off the coast of Honduras. You go
or Bryan Johnson was?
He was, in fact, there. Yeah. We were there with him. It's a great time.
So you met him?
Yeah, I met Bryan.
Yeah. Any opinions on Bryan?
Yeah, I do have opinions on Bryan. I was super impressed by Bryan in person.
Really?
Very impressed. I'm advocate for Bryan a lot. So here's the thing.
Okay.
This is a guy who made millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, maybe
like 400 million or something like that.
He made a lot of money. And he invested it in, he would say, trying to make himself immortal.
Right.
And that's not a word I use a lot, and I think he was the first person to put out a fairly comprehensive, very digestible, data-backed personal longevity protocol. I didn't see a lot of academics do that. Like it, and there's a lot of value in that. Like people can look at that, they can criticize it, but they can also be like, okay, this is something to build on. So I really tell people that Bryan did a real public service by doing that. In person, Bryan, the first thing I noticed about Bryan, and I learned later, he grew up in the country and you like riding 4-wheelers and stuff. He was a lot more like solid in person than I thought he would be.
Really?
Playing sports, you're like dapping people up, and he was more like that than I expected.
Really?
Yeah, it was surprising in a good way.
Because people online will see that he's he's reverse aging to 18 and he looks kind of weird and soft and
pale vampire.
Yeah.
I think to get clicks on social media.
Okay.
But in person, his posture is really impressive, and he's very physically strong.
Yeah.
And he's also very smart. Like he can speak on the spot, on camera, off camera, very intelligently. And he was also quite warm in person. Like he was easy to talk to. He was friendly. I had a great time with Bryan. I'm a big fan of, what I view as his contribution to the field. So yeah, we had a good time with him.
What's the value that you said like he brings a lot of value? Is it in the personalization or what's the value he brings? It's
the putting a comprehensive data-driven protocol out there, even if it's wrong. Because people are like, what if I want to optimize for longevity? What do I do top to bottom? What off-label medications do I take, like Rapamycin and Metformin? What supplements do I take? What kind of workouts do I do? What do I eat? Bryan was like, here's all of it, right or wrong, like one page, the 80 supplements I take, the medications, and that gives people something to chew on.
Yeah.
And his protocol, you could criticize elements for sure, like you can with anything, but it wasn't off the wall. Like it was, a lot of science went into it.
Yeah.
I think that was like a novel contribution that everybody really benefited from, in my opinion. Wow.
So what do you think all the controversy is around him? Is it just kind of clickbait or?
I think he likes some of it because it creates clicks.
Right.
There's other controversy that I don't think he likes. And that's not my business. I mean, being a celebrity, who knows, I met Bryan once. Big fan of the contribution I described. Really enjoyed meeting him in person. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. So in terms of going back to the procedure, it's simply like one shot.
Yeah.
Right.
So you go down an island or somewhere like that, and you go to a doctor's office, they have an insulin syringe, and there's like half a cc of liquid in it. They inject it into your belly fat. They observe you for maybe 15 minutes to make sure you don't get localized irritation. And then you go home. That's it.
Wow. And then that's supposed to last for 6 months to a year.
I'd say about a year plus or minus. Like we have seen
it's like the best round number.
As a scientist, I round numbers pretty brutally. Like 10 trillion cells in your body. That's not an exact number, but it's order of magnitude.
10 trillion somatic cells. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's useful to round numbers.
Yeah. Right.
But I'd say a year is a reasonable expectation, plus or minus a few months. But the point is, if you bought follistatin on a peptide website, you might have to inject it 4 times a day to keep blood levels up. And this is one shot, lasts months, a year. So that's the power of gene therapy, basically.
Okay. So what's the difference between like getting it online and like doing it with MiniCircle?
Yeah. So a lot of proteins, which are, again, gene products, a gene encodes a protein. So IGF-1, HGH, HCG, these are proteins that are encoded by, you can buy those proteins online on peptide websites, or you get them from a doctor these days.
Okay.
But you have to inject them frequently. And sometimes that's not a bad deal, but there's some proteins that are not available, or they're not really suitable for that type of scenario. So gene therapy is just it's a more powerful therapeutic mode.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Because the way it's done is, it's more powerful than somebody just like trying to do it themselves.
Well, instead of, it's kind of like you give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for life. If you give your body a protein, you give it a protein. Here are the instructions to make a protein. It follows those instructions for a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I remember reading about that and hearing about that. It's kind of like a export factory with systemic benefits.
Yeah. So currently we're using, some proteins that your cells make, they stay in the cell that they're made. Other proteins, especially a lot of hormones, the cell makes it and exports it out into the bloodstream. So we're using, Follistatin, Klotho, these are both naturally secreted proteins. So your belly fat makes them, ships them out into your bloodstream. You get systemic benefits without having to like IV a gene therapy and get it in a bunch of cells. You just make a little export factory.
And it goes into your bloodstream and then goes into all the other tissues?
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
The protein does, but the gene therapy just goes right there.
I see. Okay. So follistatin is essentially like a protein that we already secrete?
100%. We have a follistatin gene in our chromosomes. And our cells make follistatin. They secrete it into the bloodstream, and it goes out and inhibits.
Okay. Because I actually was talking and asking different people before we talked today, because I wanted to see like what people wanted to listen to as well.
Yeah.
And some people were like around Austin, they're like, well, it sounds amazing, but they're skeptical. They're like, anything new, right? There's people that are like totally on board, let's try this.
Sure.
But then there's people out there listening that are like skeptical.
Rightly so. In science, we're trained to be skeptical by default. It's a good attitude to be skeptical. But the truth is that gene therapy it's real. Like clinical trials for plasmid gene therapy have been going on for, I think, decades at this point. Like the first the principles are there, the data is there. It's very real. It's just about making it available in a safe and accessible way, which is what we're trying to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there any, potential side effects or negative things that could potentially happen?
There's always potential. Yeah. I mean, so we chose follistatin because it has a big effect size in the literature, and it's a very desirable effect. Like people want more muscle and less inflammation.
Yeah.
It also has a great safety track record. It doesn't have a lot of even at higher levels, it's not a lot of stuff that is known to go wrong with high follistatin. As far as the gene therapy itself, plasmids are pretty darn safe.
Okay.
So, we did a proof of concept trial with 43 volunteers, men and women aged 23 through 88. We observed them for 3 months, and in as many cases as we could, longer than that, up to 12 plus months. And no serious adverse effects related to therapy were, reported. And I could say that in more plain English, like nobody had any side effects.
That's good to hear. So I'm also interested in Klotho because it seems like you're a little more interested in that too.
I mean, to me, cognition is at a premium. I'd rather be smart than strong. And Klotho is one of these things that can legitimately increase cognition or intelligence. So that's very appealing.
So like basically follistatin has the ability to help us live longer because of the anti-inflammatory effects. I think it could possibly make people live longer. I think it could. So physical frailty is a huge problem with age. Okay. Yeah.
So not just the anti-inflammatory effects, but the strengthening effect can be really valuable for healthy aging, what we might call health span.
Wow.
Anti-inflammatory. Yeah, that's good too. we saw stronger data around the body composition stuff. We also saw epigenetic age lowering. That's, I would say, in some ways less concrete than body composition, but it's encouraging.
Yeah.
But Klotho, I would say my interpretation of the literature is that Klotho has stronger data for improving longevity, and the data are very strong around its ability to improve cognition. So this is like, to me, it is a more exciting target.
Yeah.
But this is like it's like two home runs. Like they're both like improved body composition and, let's say epigenetic age lowering or improved longevity, and then cognition boost plus improved longevity, like both with good safety margins and a safe delivery. Like this is very desirable.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited about both of them.
Yeah. That's amazing. Is there like a ballpark number that you could give us, like in terms of like how much you could anti-age, kind of reverse your age? Is there some kind of number we could that people out there they love to hear numbers of like, oh, if I'm 40, I could be 25 again biologically,
the closest single number I think we currently have to like a biological age is these epigenetic tests. I'm a scientist. I wouldn't give a number. I would say, aging, the fight against aging takes place on many fronts. And I wouldn't put a number on it, but I would say, improving cognition and raising Klotho, which if you look at the literature, it's increased lifespan significantly in experiments. 20 years ago, the discoverer of Klotho showed that overexpression of Klotho increased mouse lifespans significantly. Like
30%, was it? Or is that Follistatin?
I think there was a recent paper with Follistatin gene therapy that showed 30%.
I think I heard 30%, right?
Yeah. The Klotho paper, I don't remember the number, but I remember being impressed by the paper and the body of literature around Klotho.
Yeah.
It's very, my working conclusion is that it's very, very strong. We see a lot of genes in aging and only a few emerge as like really robust. And I would say Klotho falls in that category.
What can you tell us more about Klotho?
Yeah. Klotho it's not, for me, it's not the most intuitive protein it's not the easiest protein to understand. For me, it is more of a case of really strong data. And I don't personally understand the mechanism as deeply as I would like at this point. I think, it's, let's see. Let me start with that. Yeah. I don't want to sound ignorant about Klotho. Let me start with that. Yeah.
Okay. Cause I know that Follistatin essentially is blocking, it's kind of like acting as a blocking of myostatin and activin, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I was curious about like, is there any negative effect of blocking a natural protein, even if it is limiting kind of muscle growth? That is kind of a separate question.
They're often, the truth is it's highly variable. So this is just, the reason this has been jumped on is because this is a case where there's not a lot of side effects associated with that.
Yeah.
There are potential side effects, but I think the safety margin is much better here than with a lot of other hormones or proteins that we might modulate.
Yeah.
Klotho, I want to say it's FGF, FGF23 co-receptor. Maybe
that's over a lot of people's heads. So
yeah, it affects mineral homeostasis. It's really a kidney health and mineral homeostasis.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
we're hearing kidney
health, cardiovascular health, mineral homeostasis, and cognition. The cognition has been shown. They gave lab animals peripheral Klotho, which is basically Klotho in their bloodstream that didn't cross the blood-brain barrier. And they still saw cognition improvement despite Klotho not touching the brain.
Wow.
And they identified platelet factor 4 as like the thing in the brain that was affected. As a scientist, it's really important to be able to say, I don't know. I have like a lot of jobs. So I've reviewed the literature. Again, Klotho is one that is just, the mechanisms are not in pathways that like I learned a lot about in my training. They're
Okay.
not super intuitive.
Okay.
When the time comes, I will dive back in and make sure I know it inside and out. But
Yeah.
like, I would just say the data are extraordinary. Like Klotho,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
data are super solid that Klotho is awesome. And these are the tissues it affects. That's about what I can say.
Yeah. So let's like list out like the benefits for everybody, maybe Follistatin and Klotho. Like what are the things they're like, oh wow, that's like, let's list them out maybe.
I mean, Follistatin, the big thing is increased muscle mass. Like that's
the main thing with it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
In my opinion, absolutely.
Okay.
And so I think of this as anti-frailty.
Anti-frailty. Yeah.
I mean, if you're young and you want to get more jacked or something, like that's great too, but
Right.
it can't be overstated the degree to which when people cross a certain age, sarcopenia, osteoporosis start to really negatively impact their quality of life.
My mother. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very real.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main benefit of Follistatin. We saw epigenetic age reduction, and there is strong data in the literature for an anti-inflammatory effect. We tested some inflammatory markers. We did not get statistically significant changes in those. We had subjective reports of benefits there.
Okay.
But Follistatin, I would say anti-frailty, more muscle mass, improved longevity possibility via multiple mechanisms, epigenetic age lowering, anti-inflammation.
Epigenetic age lowering. Okay. I understand. I totally understand that. And anybody can think of like, if you have like a grandmother, grandparents or an aging parents and seeing their muscle mass literally go away, if they were able to keep that muscle mass, they'd be able to walk. They wouldn't break their hip.
Exactly. It's a really big thing. We did have a case study of an 80-year-old participant in the trial had pretty severe lumbar spine osteoporosis.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, his data are really extraordinary. It's one person, but I saw the PDFs from the doctor's office. I also saw his wearable data. We saw rapid improvement to his bone density in his lumbar spine. And he went from struggling to walk for like 5 straight minutes on his daily walks to jogging a bit on his daily walks.
Oh my God.
So that's really encouraging.
You said he was 80 years old?
Yeah, he's 80 years old. Yeah.
And he's able to start jogging?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good.
That's significant.
Yeah, it is significant. So that's Follistatin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we got Klotho.
Yeah.
Cognition. Is that the main thing?
For me, that's the main thing. I mean, kidney health and is also important, but like, anecdotal.
Be smarter.
Yeah. Like if you're
smarter,
smarter,
like AI smart, like. Well, we can't keep up with that, but
that's a tough.
Yeah, it's moving
standard.
so fast. Yeah,
it's moving very fast. Yeah, I anecdotally in the biohacker community, people have thrown the number around like 5 to 10 point IQ boost.
Okay.
Wow. I mean,
that's kind of significant.
It's significant, and again, the data are strong. So, like a cognition boost is, to me, this is like an ultra premium benefit. Like if you're legitimately smarter from one shot that's safe, that's really good. Yeah. So it's very exciting.
Yeah. That is very exciting.
And again, I would say Klotho, if I had to bet, I think for longevity too, Klotho is likely, I think it's likely strong.
It's even better.
I don't want to like throw. I'm not in sales. I don't want to throw Follistatin is excellent, but I think Klotho is very, very exciting. Klotho is a little trickier in terms of potential side effects. So I think that's why Follistatin came first.
Okay.
But Klotho is very, very exciting. Like, yeah.
Is there any other companies that are doing what you guys are doing? Competitors?
Yeah. There's a landscape of companies. Yeah, I'm sure I don't know all of them. I'm aware of some.
There's a lot, probably, right?
There's a lot. There's I think a pretty big variation in quality. The devil's really in the details with this kind of stuff. So yeah, but there are other companies. But maybe like when we go around to conferences and stuff, there's maybe not as many as you would think. I mean, but it's not a zero-sum game. Like we're talking about elevating humanity, I mean, everybody wins if we make safe, accessible gene therapies, like
100%.
There's a lot of genes that can be put into the therapy. So there's a lot of room for innovation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very exciting. Very exciting. Thanks for that. And so I think because also, I mean, for a lot of people out there, they can't really fly to Honduras and drop, it's also $25K, right?
Yeah, the price is 25. The flight can be pretty short and not too expensive. The 25K for gene therapy is expensive.
Yeah.
But it's worth noting, previously commercially available gene therapies available via medical tourism, I think were about 200 to 300K. So this is like a tenfold, order of magnitude reduction in price. So we are trying very hard. And there were like, again, 5+ years of stealth R&D that were not free. So we're trying very hard and being very effective in bringing down the price tremendously, but it's still an advanced premium therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is still like manageable for some people, but
it's manageable for a lot of people, actually. I mean, like it's manageable for a good number of people.
Yeah.
But the more I volunteered for the trial, because I wanted to get my foot in the door, the more people invest in this, whether it's via enthusiasm or buying therapy or anything, the more this field grows and the more the price can come down, the more targets can be available.
Right.
So this is like the start of something very exciting. Yeah.
That's exactly where I want to be, at the cutting edge. So I love that you're on this podcast, man. So, okay. But, maybe for the people out there that are like, okay, it's for everybody out there, like, okay, can't really drop that right now, but they're very much into, improving their health so that they can grow their business, or so that they can live a fulfilling life, so they can optimize, they can have great relationships, all the things we're looking for.
Happiness, quality. Yeah.
Just
it boils down to happiness. All those things feed into happiness.
They do. They do. They really do. So for those people, I know you had talked about when we met at the Future of Biohacking event, you talked about what was the thing that pretty much everybody could do that was like $400.
Oh, yeah. This is, so I'm going to try and, I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job of taking like 10% off my enthusiasm so far. So I can get like super excited about this stuff, but
oh, I'm an enthusiast.
Yeah, so. I know. I know. You're I feel you, man. So we like the Human Genome Project was like late 90s, maybe.
Yeah.
This is like one of the, this is one of humanity's biggest achievements ever, like culmination of centuries of effort.
Yeah.
Like figuring out what a cell is, figuring out what DNA is, like then we can sequence everybody's code.
Yeah.
At this point, it costs $400.
Right.
To have all 3 billion base pairs of your code not only sequenced, but they go back and forth over it 30 times to make sure they didn't miss anything. And then you have that data for the rest of your life. Like the unique code that you run on that makes you everything.
Oh my God.
Is $400. People spend $400 on on
podcast equipment.
Yeah, I mean anything you could, like a pair of shoes,
Yeah,
and like you can have like one of the crowning achievements of human history just delivered to you. So I tell, like, most people don't know this is available, and a lot of people, including scientists, when they if they do know it's available, they're like, "What am I going to do with that data?" And I'm like, anything you want for the rest of your life, like until right now you can do nothing because you don't have it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so. Super fun. Yeah, whole genome.
You don't have to hold off your excitement, man.
Yeah,
or maybe you do for another reason. I don't know.
It can get a little out of control, but I'm feeling okay.
Yeah. So for the 3 billion, so essentially what you're saying is that we can go and get our own, like we understand our own DNA, like all 3 billion, digits of code. We can get our own unique blueprint of like being a human being.
Yeah, you can get that for $400. And once you have it forever. And you can analyze it anytime you want. Like, if you're, so yeah.
Like how do people analyze it, or what could they do with it? Or
so look, I got mine done as soon as I heard this was available.
Yeah.
And, then I started connecting with some elite athletes, one of whom in particular is also extremely excitable. And we sequenced his genome. And that just led to I had to give him a report on his genome. And I talked to scientists, like people who work in genomics, and I was like, "How?" And they just were like, "Nah, like it's hard." So I just started going through on the website. They have a genome explorer where you can look up one gene at a time in your genome. And I just went old school hard work style and made a list of interesting genes and looked them all up one at a time.
Yeah.
Put
No
all
ChatGPT.
First, I just copied and pasted all the mutations and interesting genes into Excel. And then I went through those mutations one at a time, including with ChatGPT's help. And a lot emerged, actually. Like, it took a little labor, but it was not that hard.
Yeah.
Like conceptually.
Compared to what you've done, you're studying, you've done.
No, it really was not. I mean, it was pick, let's say whatever, 10, 30, 50 interesting genes, look them up, copy and paste, look up those mutations, summarize it in a Word document. Bam, you analyze your genome.
Yeah.
To a meaningful degree. Like there's still more, but like that's a very good start.
So what did it say about your genome or what?
Yeah, so I've actually mostly focused on some of the athletes I work with, but I looked at so I found the exact 2 mutations that give me red hair, which is just kind of fun.
That is awesome.
Red hair is super weird, but it's
very unique.
It's rare, at least. Yeah.
Right? That's what I mean.
It's at a nexus of biochemistry too. That's like, so redheads don't just have less melanin; we make defective melanin. Which is, I'm not super happy about that, if I'm being honest. Like, our planet is powered by the sun. Anyway, that's another story. But it's a pigment. It's a pigment in Earth life that has existed on Earth way before humans. It's like the main skin pigment for humans. And we make 2 kinds of melanin: eumelanin, which means good melanin, and pheomelanin, which means fake or bad melanin. And redheads are just basically unable to make eumelanin. Melanin is basically a chain of tyrosine amino acids. And redheads insert a random cysteine amino acid every so often and just like mess it up.
Got to be unique. Got to be different somehow.
Yeah, I mean, the lifetime of sunburns I got growing up in the South, I don't know if it was worth it. But I have actually a rare, I think a very rare, like maybe 1 in 1,000 or something, mutation in a mitochondrial gene, succinase dehydrogenase subunit D. We all know that one.
Wow.
But
say that again.
Yeah. So SDHD. So complex 2 in your mitochondria, this is the protein that anchors it to the membrane. And one of my copies of that is messed up. And this actually, we were talking about altitude in Colorado earlier.
Yeah.
So there's a good chance that my low oxygen response is constantly turned on by this mutation, which might explain some of my athleticism, but it also puts me at higher risk for some rare but serious head and neck cancers. Now, I want to insert something here. Like one of the worst things that happens when people get their genome sequenced is they get some report, and the report from the company has to deliver something. And it's usually something that can be overinterpreted in an alarmist way. Really want to encourage people not to get their report and be like, I'm at risk,
Okay.
But this one is like, of all the mutations I have, this is one that's like actually kind of risky.
Okay. Okay. So it basically gives you like risk factors or kind of, what does a report give you exactly?
There are all kind of reports out there. I'm not super enthusiastic about many, if any of them. I think the best approach is like pick categories that are cool to you, like cognition, longevity, strength, endurance. Go to ChatGPT, say, what 10 genes are most important for endurance? Look up those one at a time in the genome browser.
Boom.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's great.
It's more fun, more positive, and it's more productive than getting a report that's like, you have a 24% increased risk for heart attack. 30.
Yeah.
You're gonna
freak out.
Not that meaningful, and it's just gonna stress you out. So have fun with it. Like, make some lists, look them up.
I love that. You just made that like digestible for everybody. So it's like you can buy it for $400. And then you can basically figure out which genes are, for cognition, for muscle mass, for anti-inflammation, things like that.
Anything you want, like I would say because I've been going over this again, like one category at a time.
Yeah.
Use ChatGPT or the internet, make a list of 10 genes.
Okay.
If you come up with 12, just keep it to 10 because it spins out of control easily. Look up those 10, copy and paste the mutation in Excel, and then maybe plug that into ChatGPT and be like, which ones of these are most meaningful? It works pretty well.
Okay.
And, I'll probably put this, like some lists of genes on my Instagram.
Yeah.
I really want to encourage people to do this.
Yeah.
This is really empowering for people. Science should be accessible.
Yes.
We understand what DNA is now, and we can like people should have access to that. And there's no value in making it seem unnecessarily complicated. It's not that complicated.
It doesn't have to be, right?
No, it's not that complicated.
Like doing the science is complicated, but the results don't have to be complicated.
The path to being able to sequence DNA was extremely complicated. At this point,
like you said, it's like a short. You were talking about your job actually, but
so in science,
the analogy was pretty funny.
Yeah, so you played baseball,
and
I was like, having a career as a scientist, it would be like if you're a baseball coach and you just went around to every team and only coach shortstops and only on how to field grounders that were like 3 feet to their left. Like there's a high degree of, that's a bit of an overstatement, but there's a high degree of specialization.
Serious specialization.
Yeah. It is what it is. Yeah.
Wild. Well, okay. Where did I want to go next? So I am actually curious because you have like the longevity pyramid here. And so I actually want to show everybody, kind of share the screen here.
All right.
And
my very underdeveloped Instagram. I'm not good at, I'm trying.
We only have 20 posts and it's like, you have,
I stand by all 20 of them, but I need to put more stuff up there.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. So it has potential, but
I want to say I had to give a talk in Manhattan. Okay. Going to New York City is a relatively new thing in my life. Okay. I'm from the South. I threw this together last minute and the audience responded more to this slide than anything. People were like emailing me, like, can you send me the pyramid slide? And I was like, all right, this is what people want. This is the pyramid. I talked with a CEO of a big biotech company the other day, and I told him this, and he was like, "Oh, that's all." Like I was like, "Okay, this is popping with like multiple."
Yeah.
So this is
It's probably relatable. It's so relatable to people because they know the pyramid. You know, the food pyramid. Everybody knows that.
The no longer popular food pyramid. But
right.
But the food, but it's useful and it's easy. It's digestible.
Okay, so let's break this down for people.
Yeah.
So. You can take over.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want the top of your pyramid to be high, you need the base to be wide and strong. And so this kind of goes from bottom to top. It's kind of like, just simpler and safer things at the bottom and more advanced and like out there stuff closer to the top. So the biggest thing, and most of it is free, that everybody should be encouraged to do for their aging, for their performance, for anything, is improve their lifestyle. So the basics, like don't smoke, don't drink excessively.
That's the base of the pyramid here.
Eat well, work out, good relationships, sleep, all that stuff, nature exposure.
Yeah.
That's your foundation.
I notice you have money in here.
Oh
too.
Yeah. Money's real.
A lot of stress comes from money, right?
And if you want to talk about something that's predictive of longevity, I think
really
money's up there.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want people to neglect money, like financial responsibility.
100%. Yeah.
It's important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the stress, I've seen the stress.
Yeah.
I've experienced the stress. Yeah. The stress is real.
It's not going to help you live a long time.
It's going to actively hurt you a lot, I would say. Yeah. So, and I'm not talking about whatever your goals are, but I think there are, just like with a lot of these things, we were talking about FFMI earlier, as there's probably some number, some savings number, some kind of income numbers that are like good, reasonable standards, you know, like if you don't want to become a billionaire, but you want to be secure and have enough money to be happy, there's probably some numbers that can guide you and some principles to getting those numbers. So super important. So let's say you've gotten really good at lifestyle, like you're doing things right. And you're like, I want to level up a bit.
Nice.
supplements are super real. Like a lot of them work. They're over the counter. Most of them are not that expensive. So
you'd start with creatine, fish oil,
I should
taurine.
add, there's others too. So like creatine, fish oil, taurine are good. Fiber might be lifestyle, but let me think for a second. Cause so like low dose lithium, very neuroprotective, very inexpensive.
Low dose lithium.
Lithium orotate, available on Amazon. I'm not a medical doctor. This is not medical advice, but yeah, it's
What is that good for? Is that cognition? Is
preserving neuronal health?
Neuronal.
Your brain.
Oh,
keeping neurons alive and functioning.
Okay, yeah. Let's do that.
Low dose lithium changed my life.
Really?
I'm like a pretty passionate person.
Pretty smart guy. I mean, you got to have some neurons in there.
But I'm prone to overexcitement and like getting a little wild. So
love it.
Lithium helped me to just kind of stabilize a bit. And this is like 100-fold lower dose than prescription lithium for bipolar. It's like microdosed lithium.
Okay.
Yeah. But Spermidine, funny name.
Okay.
And it is actually named for exactly the reason you think it is. But Spermidine has extended mouse lifespan. And it's a super interesting molecule that's available on Amazon. What else is good? There's a lot. So supplements, tons that you can do with supplements.
So most people out there that, they've got a good lifestyle. Maybe there's a few things they could improve and they're going to work on those. But, now they're like, what supplements, so if they add, so basically they should start adding supplements. Like everybody that's interested in longevity now, you can't just live off of, the lifestyle and the food we have. Would you agree that you need to add supplements, or is that just a bonus?
Here's what I would say. So first of all, it's a personal choice. I respect people's choices, but what I would say is this: the human lifespan is hardwired to have certain limits. Nature really cares about you until you're 25, and then it kind of wants you to die slowly at first, and a little bit later, pretty quickly. And there's a pretty hard limit at 120 in terms of just being alive.
120 years?
Yeah, that's pretty. No, nobody really gets past 120.
Yeah.
And nobody really gets past 100 like super vigorous.
Yeah.
So like if you're okay with that, or if you like that natural order of things and you want to you don't want to take pills and like you want to eat, I respect that. And you can do that
back to us.
And you can very likely live a healthy and fulfilling life. But many people want to have more control over their biology or more influence. They want to surpass those limits that are hardwired by an evolutionary process that doesn't really have the same goals that we do. So to do that, I would argue you're definitely going to need supplements. You're going to need medications. You're going to need advanced things like gene therapy.
And I'm speaking about excited earlier. I'm particularly excited when I first read Dave Asprey's book, and he's talking about living to 180. It very much was like, boom, that's what I want to do. I want to live to 200. Let's go to 200.
It's a great start.
And I've even heard people that are very much in the biohacking community talk about more than that, which is kind of crazy, but
it's not that crazy.
No,
not at all.
I actually heard somebody like, this is ridiculous, might seem ridiculous, but like 1,000, like the top level humans.
Why stop there?
Let's go. I love your guy.
I've thought a lot about the language around this. It's super important how you tell these stories and express these desires. When people hear like immortality, a lot of people think of like billionaires trying to separate from the rest of humanity. And I've met a few billionaires, and that's actually not my impression of the few I've met but I typically say I want to live indefinitely. Like I would actually like to have more of a say. Death, the option to die is always on the table. I would like to have more of a say in when my body declines. And so I don't necessarily want to live forever, but like we're on the brink of a lot of exciting stuff like space. I'm not cynical about space. Space is super cool, and we're getting closer. I would like to explore space.
Yeah, let's go to Mars.
Mars is just our neighbor. Like,
Let's go somewhere else. Yeah.
anyway. So there's I would say like creativity, love, and exploration are inexhaustible.
Mm.
Anyway, so the biological principles, there's no principle that says you can only live to 180 or 200 or like,
Yeah.
if you get good enough at the
Game.
yeah, there's no
Right.
there's not necessarily a limit.
There's
there.
no limit. Yeah.
And it doesn't exist in a vacuum. There's that, ethical, environmental, socioeconomic
Right.
context in which this exists. But
Yeah.
all that means is like pay attention to those as well. So it's
So how long do you want to live?
indefinitely. I mean,
Just like choose that, like you say you're at 250, you're like, okay, I'm ready to go. Or
you're
you're 801 years old.
there's so many things I want to do. Let's just, even on Earth, like I used to really enjoy songwriting, and I basically gave it up it was a lot of hard work for me, and I wanted to focus on science. I could probably enjoy writing songs certainly for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wild.
think about how many, I love classic literature too. I've read a small fraction of what I want to read.
Yeah.
People love to travel. People love to hike.
Yes.
I'm going to get to hike maybe, if I live to 100, I'm going to get to hike maybe 1 to 10% of the mountains I actually want to hike.
Right.
I would love to hike them all.
Yeah.
And I'm not hurting anybody by doing
We should do some hikes together, man.
We should do some hikes, yeah. So yeah, and another thing too, I'm going to throw this in there. The afterlife. So is that all right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
You're
the
good.
afterlife is something that we can investigate scientifically.
What?
And I would like to spend some time investigating that before I'm just thrown into
100%.
it. And there's a lot of headway has been made in that direction.
Is that like behind the scenes?
No,
Is
it's
that
very
something
in
we can
public.
Learn about?
Absolutely. So one of the people I led some. So what a lot of what's happened is medical doctors have compiled reports from people who've had near-death experiences when they went into cardiac arrest or something.
Yeah.
There's like thousands of case studies that have been recorded. Then they looked for commonalities in the experiences.
Yeah.
And you can couple that to like doing an EEG of the brain in a dying patient and looking at molecular like we've made a lot of progress. And then there's also wisdom from mystical traditions.
Right.
You can kind of integrate all this and start to
that new stuff like thousands of years ago. I mean,
they did know a lot.
They knew a lot.
They knew a lot. Yeah, they knew a lot.
In some ways, like more than we know now.
In some ways, I would agree with that.
And a scientist would agree with that.
Many scientists are like closet mystics. I want to bring that out. And like the two are not necessarily antagonistic, not at all. So
I love that.
But anyway.
Wow. That's transformative for me.
Cool.
Because I actually do like science. I didn't necessarily go into that field, obviously, but I did go back to school and did biology and did chemistry. Yeah. Never did chemistry before for some reason. We never had to take it. But when I was mid-20s, after some years of pro baseball, I went back to school and I was like, I actually really like chemistry.
Chemistry's cool.
It's just like the idea of like making my brain really work on these problems.
Yeah.
And then I just felt like my cognition was improving.
Yeah.
And then I noticed like biology, I'm like, this is like our cells, and I only did a few classes and ended up going a different direction, but I just remember it like, it's very interesting, And so I guess my point was that I was like, wow, science is actually really cool, at the time. And because I've always been just a very, I actually traveled for 2 years after pro baseball.
Okay.
It totally changed my life. Yeah. And I went to India. Oh, nice. I went to Nepal. That's awesome. I was a teacher in Africa.
Oh, that's super cool.
Mindfulness teaching. And I was teaching like sports and mindfulness at this private school. I went all around Europe, traveled all around Europe. And that for me gave me a grounding of like spirituality, something, because I didn't grow up with a religion, like nothing. Okay. It was very much like my grandfather's actually very scientific based.
Interesting.
He's an economist.
Yeah.
So my mother, his daughter they didn't believe in anything religion wise, different from my father's side. But so I grew up with my mother was very like very artistic and very creative and very sort of, I don't know if spiritual is the best term, but so I had that kind of creativity and spirituality, but I never was in a formal religion at all.
Yeah.
Because my mother's like, oh, we don't need to be doing that. So for me, after baseball, I was like, I didn't have a grounding. I didn't have something that kind of stabilized me.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to go like travel and like figure that out. So I studied a little Buddhism. I studied meditation. I studied Hinduism. I learned about enlightenment and like what I'm doing here, and found my purpose after baseball. And so I came from that world of like, wow, like understanding these deep mystical stuff, you know, from thousands of years ago, saints and rishis, you know, meditating for their whole life and like literally like talking about these stories of them taking out their digestive parts and cleaning them in the Ganga and then putting them back in and like crazy stuff like that. It is
crazy.
Wild. And then some of them living, you know, in the books like hundreds of years. But, you know, who knows? So I came from that world, and then I was like, wait, science is actually cool too. So for me, you're like bringing this together of like that it could be, they don't have to be antagonists.
Not at all. No, I mean, not at all. They don't have to be.
Yeah. It's cool. That's cool. Wow. This is awesome. Cool. So where were we? We can kind of,
we were on the pyramid. If you want to wrap, but it is your show. So.
Yeah. Let's wrap that up for people so they can understand. I like the top one especially. Cyborg AI replacement at the top. What does decoupled consciousness mean though? What is
also everything up to cyborg is limited to like a physical body. But if you can make your consciousness exist outside of your physical body, you could have like a super robust physical body, but you could also just send your consciousness out wherever.
Right.
And so I would say that's the pyramid is like physical body. Above it would be just complete freedom from physical body. And I think that's plausible.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah. I mean, the way things are advancing with AI, I mean, geez, consciousness in AI. I mean, who knows how long that's going to be.
Yeah.
But okay. So for people to understand, you know, you got the lifestyle. That's the base of longevity.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say underneath that, data collection informs all this stuff.
Okay.
It's like if any of this stuff you do, you can go back, collect data, and it flows up into reinform your decision.
Okay. So we need to collect that data
aggressively.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Yeah. Blood work, whole genome sequencing, if you like, get your data so you know how you're doing. Yeah.
Okay. For people out there, make sure you get your data. Okay. Then the lifestyle, we talked about the supplements. Maybe we can quickly go through RX and biologics and wrap this up.
Yeah. So as powerful as supplements can be, you know, I think prescription medications can be even more powerful. You know, Rapamycin, Metformin is kind of like the 1-2 punch of the aging field.
What are those? Actually, I don't know what Rapamycin and Metformin are.
All right. So
are those pharmaceuticals?
They are.
Okay.
So
it's RX. Okay.
Yeah. Do you want more on them, or do you want to keep moving?
Something quick you can say about them? What are they?
Can I get 30 seconds on them?
Yeah.
All right. So 1935, we start from lab rats. They live longer. For 50 years, we didn't know how that worked. 93 through 2005, we figured out how it works. 3 things: turn down insulin, turn down mTOR, turn up AMPK. Insulin's not really druggable. You can drug mTOR with rapamycin. It's a drug that was discovered in the soil on Easter Island. You can drug AMPK with metformin or maybe other drugs. So Rapa and metformin is basically a fasting mimicking 1-2 punch that's widely adopted by longevity enthusiasts.
Wow.
Off-label use. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Definitely look more into that. Okay. And then biologics.
Yeah. So stem cells, gene therapy, plasma therapies, more expensive, more advanced, but probably also more powerful.
Yeah.
And then eventually it's like, why not just make titanium skeleton or whatever cyborg stuff. I asked my boss's boss in the military, I was like, what's next? And she was like, cyborg parts.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Your boss's boss in the military.
Yeah. She was very nice, actually.
So somebody in the U.S. Air Force, like very high up.
Yeah. She was high up. She was very
nice.
Wow.
So I would love to talk to her.
Ask her some
everybody
secrets.
There was awesome.
She was cool.
She knows a lot of secrets. I feel like my grandfather died with a lot of secrets, by the way. He worked in the JFK administration, by the way. That just came out.
Yeah.
And he used to just, I remember I was only like 14 or 15 when he passed away. He was in World War II, and then he was actually in the JFK, he was in think tank. But I just remember feeling like there was something he wasn't telling us. You know, I just remember
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that had to do with JFK, or maybe that had to do with, you know, aliens, or who knows what that had to do with, but
Could be.
wild. I feel like you might know some stuff about that.
Yeah. I'm definitely enthusiastic around those subjects.
Yeah.
Discretion is very important.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know stuff, but maybe you have like working conclusion.
Intuition, or
I'd say working
conclusion.
I think in science, you know, certainty is always on a slider between like 1 and 99. Never hits 0 or 100. Sometimes things can start to nudge towards higher.
Higher certainty.
Yeah, sometimes.
Got you. Wow. All right. So we have talked through a lot. So much good stuff in here for people to take right away and act on their health. But I want to see what I have left. We talked about 200, getting to 200 years old. Maybe one more question on that, sure. And then like a final question. But so I guess maybe some of that is answered. But if people out there like, I want to get, I want to be living to 200. Basically, we need to go collect our own data is the biggest thing. That's where we start.
So that's gonna help you not shoot yourself in the foot.
Okay.
So like. Yeah, because I mean, like, so heart disease kills more people than anything. Imminently preventable. Cancer, a little more insidious, harder to prevent. Neurodegeneration, also pretty insidious, harder to prevent. But getting the data helps you, like, optimize the basics and some of the advanced stuff. If you want to live to 200, my thought, I mean, your stem cells get exhausted when you get old enough.
Replace stem cells.
I would say like stuff like that, and like epigenetic rejuvenation and genetic tinkering, that type of thing, maybe some tissue replacement is gonna, like, you're gonna need to rejuvenate it in just a fundamental way, I think, to get to something like 200. But if you want to stay in good health to 80, again, we want the base of that pyramid really strong and wide, and data is going to inform that. And if you start doing stuff that's more advanced, you also want to go get data to make sure you're not causing some crazy side effects. So get familiar with data collection for all the reasons.
Love that. Yeah. Love that. That's super powerful. Yeah. I mean, now I'm like, I want to live indefinitely. I mean, that's my new goal. Like, let's just keep full potential or nothing, full potential living. I want to keep going. Absolutely. But for other people out there, they're like, I just want to live a quality life to 80 or 85 or 90, whatever. They can start doing some of this stuff, collecting some data to make sure they're living a really awesome life, loving their life. By the way, that's what this podcast is about too. Helping people love their life so they can do some of those things. Awesome, man. Well, I like to wrap. Man, I feel like we could have more spiritual talks and there'd be so much more to talk about. But I like to wrap every podcast up with one question. And it's kind of going to that end of your life, maybe that point where you're like, okay, I am ready to go, whenever that is. And so you're fast forwarding to the end of your life, whether you're a cyborg or whether you're sounds cool. Sounds so cool. Yeah. Whatever you are, wherever you are, you're like, okay, I'm ready to go. But you want to pass away with peace. You want to pass away feeling like you did everything you needed to do. And at that moment of death or passing away, you want to pass away with peace. If there were 2 or 3 things that you did in your life, whether they're philosophies, whether they're ways you lived, whether they're goals you accomplished, what might be 2 or 3 things that you would be like, okay, it's okay for me to die. It's okay for me to pass away.
Yeah, I've definitely already hit this point. Like I don't want to die, but like if it happens, I'm at peace at this point. So
that's amazing.
I wrote one song in my time spent. When I wrote that song, I was like, if I die at this point on, like I did something that was exactly the kind of thing I wanted to do with my life.
Wow.
So that was a transformative moment.
Wow.
And then the other thing is like, it actually, Some of my psychedelic experiences in my early 20s, I felt like I felt the power of God.
Oof.
And that could be both the loving, merciful power, or like the fear of bad karma was so intense in those experiences. So for me, it's very important to keep that, whatever you want to call it, that balance sheet, like neutral to positive. I do not want to I want to have a positive effect on the world. And so I try really hard to stay in that zone. So I'm at peace, you know?
Yeah. You want to have a positive effect on the world.
Definitely not a bad effect. At least mildly positive. I'm not in altruistic hero mode.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just I
Kind
want
of
to
seem like a hero. I mean,
I'm a dumb guy.
No, you're not.
In a lot of ways I am, but I'm lucky to be able to work on something I'm passionate about. But I like to I try to stay in the good column. And I think that's, if you're on your deathbed and you're deep down feel like you're in the bad column, I think that's probably a much less peaceful experience.
Yeah. And I think anybody that is, I love that question because it helps people think, okay, what is urgent that I must do in this lifetime? Not all the little tasks or the little goals or the money or whatever it is. What are the things that truly, truly matter that you have to do before you leave this place? So for anybody out there, think about what things do you, need to live by to really feel like you can pass away with peace. And man, Dr. Bryan Rosner, man, I thank you so much for coming on today. I really truly appreciate the work you're doing, man. And it really feels transformative and it's moving the world forward. And so I really appreciate it, brother. And you seem like an awesome guy too, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people find you if you want to be found? I mean,
and we at MiniCircle want to be found.
Yeah.
So MiniCircle, we have minicircle.io and minicircle.clinic are our websites. We have social media presence, usually as MiniCircle DNA on all the typical platforms. My Instagram is RJRPhD. There's some accessible fitness and longevity content on there. And so, please find us, reach out. We're reachable and we're happy to connect.
Awesome. Find them on the internet. And thank you guys so much for listening to the Full Potential Living podcast with Dr. Bryan Rosner. We are going to sign out. Remember, full potential or nothing. Peace. Play the music. Good stuff.
Thanks, man.
Do not settle for a life that does not belong to you. Uncover and activate your fullest potential in this lifetime. Live your greatest life experience.
This is the Full Potential Living Podcast with Coach